Listen to a lecture and take notes.
One of the most important aspects of geography is the ability to read a map and then apply that knowledge to a practical purpose. While most people think it's rather simple, on the contrary, it's not. As an example, think about the distance between 2 points on a globe or map, as compared to the distance between the same 2 points in reality. They are, in most cases, quite different. Take a look at this globe. Let's say that you wanted to go from New York City to London. If I measure the distance with this string here, that's the distance, right? But what route do airplanes follow? The straight one? Not at all. They follow the curvature of the Earth, like this, so that they can take a much shorter trip in reality. So, you can see clearly the straight line distance between 2 places on a globe doesn't always equal that in reality. Okay, now let's look at this map at the distance between this point here and this point over here. Can everyone see? Good. If I measure the distance according to the map scale, it's about 150 miles as the crow flies. Not too far, right? But we're talking about actual distance. Let's consider the geographical features involved. Here's a big lake. Oops, can't drive through it. Well, we'll have to drive around it. And these mountains aren't flat, of course. Driving up and down on them on a winding road adds even more distance. So, the distances on a map and in reality are clearly different, with actual distances always being longer than the ones shown on maps.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? We're a bit closer than we usually are today because I really want to focus on taking notes or note-taking in today's video. Now, I'm going to be emphasizing note-taking in today's video because, as I've mentioned in the past, if you're good at taking notes, integrated speaking questions are going to become a walk in the park. They're going to become so easy. You're actually going to be excited when task 2 ends, because if you're good at taking notes, tasks 3, 4, 5, and 6 should be really simple for you, okay? Now, in the previous clip, you should have seen me taking notes while the lecture was playing. Now, if you really listened carefully and analyzed what I took notes on, you would have quickly noticed that I deliberately and confidently ignore a lot of information that the professor says, because I know that it's impossible to say everything I hear and understand from the lecture. This lecture, although I did not look at the duration, I am certain that it's more than 60 seconds. So mathematically and statistically, it's simply impossible to say everything that you hear and understand. And that's why your great, excellent listening comprehension can actually end up making you fall into the trap that the TOEFL creates. Now, let's take a look at the beginning sentence. I thought that the ability to read a map would be the main focus because that's what the professor made it sound like. But as the introduction went on and on, I quickly figured out that the distance on a globe or map and the distance in reality, how those two distances are different is the main point. I noticed that, okay? So the beginning sentence and ending sentences are how the distance on a globe or map and the distance in reality are always different. So that's the beginning and ending sentences. Excuse me. All right, now let's look at the first part. On a globe, we can measure the distance from New York to London with a string. However, airplanes can follow the curvature of the Earth, so they actually take a much shorter trip. That's the first section, guys. In this lecture, the professor talked in a really strange way because she was actually lecturing to her students and using visual elements, visual effects that we couldn't see. So in this lecture, the professor kept on going, look here, see, and there. Yeah, and as we're listening with our headsets on, we're like, where am I looking? So the professor was really inconsiderate. I honestly don't know why this kind of question was even made. But if you're able to take good notes on a lecture like this, you'll definitely be able to take even better notes on a lecture that's more common and a little nicer, not as annoying, okay? All right, so that's the first section. Now the second section, on a map, the distance between 2 points can be measured with the map scale. But the actual distance is always much longer because of lakes and mountains, which are geographical features that add more distance. All right, so that's the second section. Now let's count how many sentences I'm actually saying from the lecture. Let's see. 1, okay, so that's pretty long. 1 until here. 2. Okay, so these are really long sentences, so I'm going to say 3 for the first section, okay? So it's actually 2 lengthy sentences, but I'm going to count that as 3. So 3 for the first section. 1, 2. Yeah, so the same situation. So for this lecture, let's say that I decided to say 6 sentences altogether, but it's actually only 4 sentences, okay? Because it's 2 really long sentences for each part. Now, let's listen to my sample response. This is going to be a sample response with 5 sentences altogether from the lecture. 1 for the beginning and 2 each for the 2 sections. I'm being honest now. So when we're talking about it lengthwise, you could say that it's maybe 6 sentences altogether, okay? All right, here's my sample. The professor gave a lecture about how the distance on a globe or map and the distance in reality are always different. To begin with, on a globe, people can measure the distance from New York to London with a string. However, airplanes can follow the curvature of the Earth, which means that they can always take a much shorter trip. Furthermore, on a map, the distance between 2 points can be measured with the map scale. On the other hand, the actual distance is much longer due to the fact that lakes and mountains, which are geographical features, add more distance. In summation, this was how the distance on a globe or map and the distance in reality are always different, which was illustrated by a globe and a map, given by the professor in the lecture. Thank you for your time and consideration. All right, so this was a sample response, as I've said, with maybe 5 sentences altogether from the lecture itself. And I have 2 seconds left after I was done saying everything I could and wanted to say. Now, keep in mind, the fluency that I was able to maintain in this sample response is once again unrealistic because I didn't make a single mistake. I didn't stutter even once. It seemed like I had a script in front of my face, and I've been practicing this script for a couple weeks before I just showed you my sample response, which obviously isn't the case and is honestly unrealistic. All right, so let's do the math. If your fluency is a little bit worse than mine, then you would have had fewer seconds left, correct? Then maybe you didn't have to say which was illustrated by something and something given by the professor in the lecture, and thank you for your time and consideration. I'm mentioning this because this isn't a matter of how much information you said from the lecture. It's a matter of your fluency, understand? So I had about 17 seconds left when I was done saying the lecture's information, but that's because I was really fluent. If you're not as fluent as I was just now, you would probably have about 15, 14, maybe even 13 or 10 seconds left. Do you understand what I'm saying? So guys, don't try to fill 60 seconds or 45 seconds with more information. Don't. You'll just be digging a grave for yourself, all right? The grave is supposed to be 6 feet deep, but you're gonna make it 10 feet deep by wanting to do that, all right? Try to fill and utilize the 60 or 45 seconds that you're given to speak by controlling your speaking pace. That's so much easier. All right, if you have any questions about what I just showed you in today's video, please utilize the comment section to your advantage. But I want to end the video on this note, guys. As long as you're able to write down words, shorter versions of words, and understand what they are completely, you'll be good at taking notes. So please use symbols for certain words. Don't be afraid to write down the first few letters of a word and try to recognize what it is. It's going to take some time to get accustomed to, but if you put in the effort, you're going to be able to recognize what those words are. And last but not least, this is the most difficult because it will be the most unnatural for you guys English is not your first language, try writing down words that you hear without the vowels, all right? I once again believe I covered this on one of my previous videos that was titled Things You Must Know for Speaking or something like that. All right, that's today's video, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one, which is going to be covering the entire TOEFL writing section. Peace out, guys.